Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. It is match day. It is semi-final second leg day. A huge game to come for the Gunners tonight up at St. James's Park. They've got it all to do, if we're being completely honest. We've got to turn around that 2-goal deficit that we take into the second leg, courtesy of a really, if we're being honest, lackluster and uninspiring performance from the Gunners at Emirates Stadium in the first leg. I know Mikel Arteta talked loads, didn't he, after the match about how we deserve to win it and all the rest of it. And I think if you look at certain metrics, we certainly did, lead the way. But the problem was that we were just not clinical enough. We were just not creative enough, and that prompted a lot of questions, didn't it, about the makeup of the squad. Look, we fast forward a month and there's still questions about the makeup of the squad. There's still questions about that forward line, whether or not we've left ourselves short, having failed to act in the January transfer window. But what you should take some encouragement from is the fact that we, of course, have just battered Manchester City in a way that 3-4 years ago probably felt impossible. That kind of, to me, signified the progress that this team have made. That signified to me that Arsenal have moved forward under Mikel Arteta, regardless of whether you think that they should have achieved more or not. They are moving at least in the right direction. Are they going fast enough? That's a debate that I'm sure we're going to have various times over the course of the remainder of the season. But as far as tonight's game goes, I'm feeling a lot more positive than I did a week ago. Now, I'm not sitting here with chest and saying that Arsenal are going to turn this around, but I give us a chance. I absolutely give us a chance of going up to St. James's Park and putting the cat among the pigeons. You know, we can cause or I should have said the cat among the magpies. That would have been better, wouldn't it? I just feel like this team has the capability. It also has the maturity. It also has the fight. It also has the spirit. And when you have all of those things, you can't be written off. Now, that's not to disrespect Newcastle United, who I think are a very, very strong outfit. There's no doubt about that. But they are having some issues of their own right now. If we have a look at Newcastle's results in recent weeks, let me just share my screen with you guys so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. Hold on, where is it? Here we go. Newcastle results as a Google search. There you go. If you look at their recent results, Saturday, the 1st of February, 2-1 defeat at home to Fulham. Okay, on the 25th of January, they beat Southampton away. Everybody beats Southampton. It's nothing really to write home about. I don't mean that disrespectfully to the Saints, but it's the reality of the situation. And you go back prior to that, there was a 4-1 home defeat at the hands of Bournemouth. So it's back-to-back home defeats for Newcastle United, back-to-back home defeats in which they've conceded a total of 6 goals. If that doesn't give you some encouragement, nothing will. So, you know, you look at where we were a month ago, you look at the aftermath of that result, you look at the frustration that kind of spilled over after that, and, you know, there was concern. Fast forward, and we are feeling, I think, a lot better about things. It's almost a month. It's 2 days out from being a month to the date that we played the first leg, where we were beaten, of course, 2-0. But a month later, I feel in a much better place about this Arsenal side, particularly after that result of the weekend. And I give us a chance. I really do. And I think if you're going to turn up at St. James's Park with no belief, then what the hell is the point? We'll talk about the team that I expect Mikel Arteta to pick tonight because he confirmed yesterday that we are going to have one of our Dubai training camps after this game. Now, I don't know exactly when they're going to be departing. I don't know exactly when they're going to be leaving. But of course, Arsenal are without a game this weekend due to our premature exit from the FA Cup. We don't play in the league until the following weekend. So Arsenal have a bit of time to go away, soak up some sun, and recover from what's been a grueling period for the Gunners. I think that's the thing that often goes under the radar when assessing this Arsenal team. People talk about the drop-off in results at times, and people talk about the drop-off in performances, tiredness. Think about the fact that we've been quite thin on the ground for long periods of this game every 3 days sort of section of our season. And then factor in, that we haven't been able to get anyone in and all the rest of it. It's been tough. It's been really, really tough. And I'm not saying that Dubai is going to fix everything. I'm not saying that Dubai means that we're going to turn it all around and go on and clean up on the trophy front. But it was a big boost for us last season. I think going away, re-energizing, spending some time together as a group, I think that really benefited us last season, and people were looking at that Dubai trip as a master trip. Again, there's no guarantee that you get the same effect. I thought Arsenal were outstanding in the second half of last season, with the exception of maybe one or two performances. And in the end, because of how good Manchester City were, that wasn't enough, which is crazy when you think about it. That's what we've been up against. That's the juggernaut that we've been sort of hunting down. They're out of the equation for now, but we're chasing someone else who's playing at juggernaut status, if you like. So look, we'll see. We'll see what happens tonight. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the dynamic of the game. We will discuss the starting 11 in a bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the dynamic of the game, because I think it's really, really interesting, right? You've got a Newcastle United side who, as I mentioned, come into this off the back of back-to-back home defeats in the Premier League, which is never a great place to be in. They come into this with a 2-goal lead, which I actually think is a dangerous lead. And I'd be saying this if it were the other way around as well. You're 2-0 up. You feel like you're in a comfortable position. But then when the game starts, particularly with Arsenal having done what they've done at the weekend and sort of scaring the living daylights out of people. And I was speaking to a good friend of mine, Chris, who runs the Gallagate Shots Newcastle podcast. Really great pod. Jumped on with him yesterday for about 20 minutes to just preview the game and discuss the game. And one of the things that came across from Chris was that Newcastle fans were quite confident about how this was going to go until they watched us blow Manchester City away at the weekend. Now, because we beat Manchester City doesn't guarantee that we're going to go to Newcastle and have the better of it and be in control and be dominant, etc., and all the rest of it. But it does give us some confidence, but also strike fear into Newcastle United. And when you think about the two recent home results, I don't think it's going to take a great deal for the St. James's Park crowd to just get that little bit anxious, to get that little bit tetchy. I know that it's a place where there's a cracking atmosphere, generally speaking, but every ground has its moments where anxiety and fear can kick in and take over. I feel it too. Like, it's mad, right? Sometimes when I'm commentating on an Arsenal game, you can tell when I'm nervous because the level of my commentary, it just declines a little bit. I feel it. I don't talk as much. I'm sort of gripped and fixated on the game. And when I'm as a fan at the game, it's even worse. So I can only imagine what that feels like for the Newcastle fans, or what that would feel like if Arsenal were, for instance, to get the first goal. If you're Newcastle United, how do you approach it? 2-goal lead is a dangerous lead, right? You either go out there, try and put us to the sword, get a third, in which case the game is done and dusted and you can put your feet up and relax, or you sit in and you try and protect what you have. And the thing is, it's that potential to be caught in two minds that is probably the biggest danger to Eddie Howe's side tonight. I genuinely believe that. Do they come at us and leave spaces, play with a line that's pushed up, in which case we can do what we did to Manchester City? Or do they sit with the low block that has served them so well against us? But then if you score from a set piece, or one goes in off of somebody's backside or whatever, then all of a sudden, how do you, as the team that now needs to adjust in the game, how do they switch back to a different mode? That's quite difficult in football, I think. It really, really is. So, yeah, interesting dynamic to the game. I think the atmosphere will be a massive factor. Can we create that nervousness and anxiety within St. James's Park by starting the game strongly? If we can, that will be a massive help. But when I say starting the game strongly, I don't even mean that we need to go and score in the first 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I think if we can get our foot on the ball and just take the sting out of them, because I do expect them to come out with a sting. I do expect them to come out looking to just take the game away from us. They'll probably revert back to that low block after 20 minutes if it's 0-0 and they're recognizing that they're not going to get that much joy going that way, or that we're well equipped to deal with it. But I do think that our start is key. Get your foot on the ball, even if it's that meaningless possession that I reference quite a bit. Even if it's a bit of that, just to kind of take the sting out of the St. James's Park crowd and set the tone for what's to come. I think that's the right way. What Arsenal have to do first and foremost is make sure they don't throw this away inside the first 15, 20 minutes. 2 goals is not a massive amount to turn around. I think we feel like it is because Newcastle United are a side that have had our number, generally speaking, recently. They're really good defensively. They're good at sitting in. They've got a really combative and physical midfield, and at times they've won that midfield battle against us. I thought at the game, I thought when we played them up at St James's Park in the league, we just lacked that creativity. We had pretty much all of the ball. They delivered one on the money, brilliant cross into the box. Alexander Isak with an amazing header. And they were 1-0 up, and we just never, ever at any point looked like turning that around. We had a few chances, but generally speaking, we lacked that spark. We lacked that creativity. And that was the point in our season where I really grew concerned and started to talk about the lack of a creative spark. I'm not saying we've necessarily fixed that. And I'm not saying that the Arsenal team is completely different now to what it was then. I still think that against the wrong opposition, we could find ourselves knocking the ball from left to right without actually making a great deal of progress. I still think we have that performance in us. And I still think that there are very few in the league who know how to stifle us better than Newcastle United. So, of course, I'm concerned. Of course, I'm worried. But if you're going to turn up at St James's Park with no belief, what the hell is the point? Do you know what I mean? So you gotta go there looking to get the job done. And I do think that the mood, forget what's going on in the fan base, I think the mood within the camp will be a buoyant one after that really, really convincing win against Manchester City the other day. Lots of you in the comments talking about what the team might look like, how Mikel Arteta might go in terms of the setup, etc., etc. For me, it's pretty straightforward. There isn't a great debate to be had here. I think I know what I would do. I think I know what Mikel will probably do as well. And I think the fact that we're due to go on this warm weather training camp almost immediately after this game, I think that kind of plays a big part in the way that we're going to set up. You know, is there a need to rest people? Are we worried about people's minutes when you consider that we don't have a game at the weekend? I don't think so. I think we need to give it our all, 100%. If we fall short, we fall short. But what I don't want to do is come away from tonight's game thinking we just didn't give it everything. If we give it everything and we fall short, you know, the truth will be that the damage was done in the first leg, and we'll have to live with that, and we'll have to accept that and cope with that moving forward. But if we go there tonight and we don't show the best version of ourselves, if we don't go there tonight and don't and play with the commitment and the intensity levels that we know that we're capable of, then that's where I think it's going to hurt for me anyway. Let me share with you guys then the team that I would pick for this game. Very, very, in fact, I'd pick the same team that we picked up at Manchester City, because Raya, I thought, was outstanding against City again, and went under the radar a little bit in terms of his performance. There was so much focus on the outfield players, and rightly so, because they were great, that David Raya's two really important saves in the first half have probably gone under the radar. Timber, Saliba, and Gabriel would make up three of my back four, and I'd continue with Miles Lewis-Skelly. I know that he's young, and I know that we want to protect him a little bit, and I know that there is probably a feeling that among a lot of people that Ricardo Calafiori should come back in. I just think like it sends the wrong message if a player's playing really, really well and you take him out. There will be games where you rotate, and there will be games where you can sort of get away with making one or two changes and calling it refreshment of the 11. In this instance, we need to play the best team. Right now, the best team includes Miles Lewis-Skelly in it. So he plays at left back for me. My midfield would be Partey, Odegaard, and Rice. I think that is Arsenal's best midfield. I say it over and over again on this podcast because I really do believe it. Partey was outstanding against Manchester City. That was the complete six performance for me. Rice feels like he's got that bit between his teeth again. Martin Odegaard got on the score sheet, although I didn't think he was amazing against Man City. Led the press really well, and as I say, scored a goal. But I still think there's work to be done to get Martin Odegaard back to his brilliant best. I know that this is going to be a controversial decision, the decision that I've taken to leave out Ethan Nwaneri from the right-hand side. I think away up at Newcastle, I think you have to play Martinelli. Kai Havertz leads the line. There's no doubt about that. We don't have much choice, do we, in that department? He is literally the only centre-forward option at the club now. And I've gone with Leandro Trossard because I just think that Leandro Trossard, and I know it's not been the case this season, right? I know it's not been, as sort of accurate to say that he's always got a goal in him this campaign as it has been in previous campaigns. But I still always have that feeling around Leandro Trossard that he could pop up with a moment at any time. And I actually think that his performances have been really improved in recent weeks. And that's not always translated into goals and sort of tangibles. But I do think that he looks a lot more lively, Leandro Trossard. I think he's taking people on much more frequently. He went on some incredible dribbles, I thought, against Manchester City. He's committing players. And I really like the look of Leandro Trossard at the moment. I love Ethan Nwaneri as well. I really, really do. But I think I would go with the front three of Martinelli, Trossard, and Havertz. Having Nwaneri to be able to come off the bench is massive. And I'd bring him on ahead of Raheem Sterling any day of the week at the moment. But that's the team I would go with. I think you're going to need a bit of experience to deal with the cauldron of an atmosphere that we're going to face up at St. James's Park. And I think you go with an unchanged team. That's how I see it. I know a lot of people would disagree. I'll get some of your comments from the live chat in just a minute as well. So yeah, let's have a look at what you guys are saying on this. Good morning to so many of you who are joining us in the live chat right now. Samus says, whoops, wrong one. Love an early morning stream to get the working day started. I am going to be out all day today. So I figured I'd get this out nice and early for you guys. But yeah, it's nice to do it in the morning, isn't it? Bright and early. So he says, we have to play with no fear tonight. It's all or nothing, a cup final or out. Take the brakes off and play with full intensity. That's it. Give it your all. And when I said that the warm weather training camp plays a part, what I mean by that is that there's no need to think about what comes next. And for a long time with us, that hasn't been the case because it's always been Wednesday game, weekend game, Wednesday game, weekend game, or Tuesday game, weekend game. Like we've been in this cycle of playing every single 3 days without fail because of the amount of competitions and fronts that we're fighting on, because of the crazy schedule, because of the extended format of the UEFA Champions League. So we found ourselves in a position where we've always had to think about what's coming next. And we've always had to think about leaving a little bit of reserve in the tank. And I think you've seen that in some of our performances, where we've maybe gone a couple of goals to the good, or we're in a comfortable position and there hasn't been that ruthlessness to go on and completely kill the game or put the game to bed, or there hasn't been the energy to do that in some cases as well as a result of the fixture schedule. But there's no excuse for that. I know people will probably be a little bit tired after the Man City game because there was a massive effort put into that. But the fact that we go on this warm weather training camp shortly after this match and don't have a game at the weekend means there's no excuse not to leave every single bit of energy and work out there and to not give this our absolute all. So, yeah, take the brakes off, as you say. AJ disagrees with me on not starting Ethan Nwaneri. I see why you wouldn't, but I just can't get enough of him. I agree with that to a point. Like, I can't get enough of him as well, but I'm also conscious of burdening the 17-year-old kid with being the savior. And I think that there is a seniority hierarchy at Arsenal, and I think that needs to be respected to a point, unless it's blindingly obvious. Martinelli's working really, really hard for the team at the moment, and I think away at St. James's Park, you're going to need that. If it was a home game, I might look at it slightly differently. Leandro Trossard is playing better than he's played in a while, as far as I can see. And so it's not like there's a crazy case that says that those two shouldn't be in the team. If those two were playing poorly, then I wouldn't hesitate about putting Ethan Nwaneri in. But I feel like just in the last few weeks, we've started to see a lot more of him. I actually prefer Martinelli on the right. I do. I prefer him there to on the left, because I think on the right, he's a bit more, how do I describe it? Like, I think when he plays on the right and he gets the ball, he doesn't hesitate. He doesn't think. He doesn't put his foot on the ball and try and figure out when the right time is to cut inside. He just goes on the outside. Like instinct kicks in and he just goes like roadrunner to get to the byline and to try and make something happen. Whereas when he plays on the left, a lot of the time when he receives the ball, he slows down because he's hesitating. He's not sure when that moment is going to come, when that door is going to open for him to check inside. And so that causes a hesitance, which allows people to get back behind the ball, to double up on him and to nullify him as a threat. When he plays on the right-hand side, I don't think he thinks, because the instinct takes over. It's about getting to the byline as quick as possible. And he's made some really good runs in recent weeks to the far post. when we've worked the ball down the left-hand side and delivered crosses into the box. So I quite like him playing on that right-hand side, I've got to be honest. Rob says, if we get through tonight, it will be my first final since the 60s. I will miss. I booked a holiday starting 15th of March. What have you done, Rob? What have you done? Look, I'm talking the game up, right? And I'm sounding really optimistic because I think if you go into a game believing you can't achieve what you set out to, what the hell is the point, right? But I think you're probably going to be okay. I think you're probably going to be okay. Hopefully you'll be watching the final on a beach somewhere. The only thing I can't take, and if we do go out tonight, I'm desperate for Liverpool to beat Tottenham. And actually, if we do go through, then I'd quite like, I don't want to say this, I shouldn't say this, I'd be okay with Tottenham beating Liverpool because I think they're much beatable and I'd rather face them in the final, even though that would bring extra nerves and extra stress because it would be a North London derby final. I do feel like we're much better equipped to beat Tottenham Hotspur, and I'd feel much more confident in our ability to do that than to beat Arne Slot's Liverpool, who are absolutely flying at the moment. Amon says Miles Lewis-Skelly is needed tonight, especially for the courage to go forward and progress the ball. I'm sure Newcastle will play some sort of low block. So I agree with that. I do think, though, that I do think that Riccardo Calafiori gives you that as well. Like, I don't think it's fair to sort of suggest that Riccardo Calafiori wouldn't be forward thinking and wouldn't be brave in his positioning. I think he does all of those things. In fact, I think Riccardo Calafiori probably does that too much. And at times we get caught out as a result of it. But does he pack a punch in attack? Of course he does. He scored goals. He should have scored more goals. He makes great runs. He's really bold and brave in his ball progression. And I love what Riccardo Calafiori brings us in an attacking sense. Miles Lewis-Skelly, though, he deserves to play right now. And you've got to have some kind of merit-based criteria in which you select your players. Otherwise, it makes a mockery, doesn't it? I get that you can get to a point as a squad where there's confidence in lots of people and you sort of mix it up in order to keep everyone fresh and whatever, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a clear hierarchy. But I think that Miles Lewis-Skelly's been great and should continue to play. Russ Morgan says, we went full strength in the first leg and were beaten convincingly, but it was a one-off game. It was a one-off game, and anything can happen in football. And that's why you've got to believe that Arsenal could potentially turn this around tonight as well. But I agree with you. We were. You say we were beaten convincingly. Do you know what? Let me just bring up the stats, that one, because I think we were beaten convincingly in some ways, in that we never really caused Newcastle anywhere near enough problems when you think about the possession we had and things like that. But hold on, can I even go back that far to January? There we go, January 7th. There we go. Let me bring up the statistics. I'll share this with you now. Hold on a second. Where are we? Here we go. So Alexander Isak goal on the 37th minute. Anthony Gordon on the 51st. If you look at the match stats, look at that. Arsenal, nearly 70% of the possession. 23 shots at goal to Newcastle United 7. Okay, only 3 of those were on target. And that's the bit, right? That's where we fell short. That's where we were lacking. But in most of the metrics in that game, we were the stronger side. And so what I think you can do when you look at an example like this is say, okay, we were beaten convincingly in terms of the scoreline, but were we beaten convincingly across the entire game? No, it was about efficiency in both boxes, and we were obviously lacking in that department. If we can improve on that and still continue to be top dogs in terms of all the other metrics, then we've got a great chance of winning the game, and we've got a great chance of getting the result that we want. Philippe says, as a Newcastle fan, I hope you don't play Nwaneri. Without Joe Linton in our midfield, Nwaneri would exploit that lack of physicality and speed that we'll lose from Joe Linton's absence. I think Joe Linton being a doubt is massive, massive, because I think when I look at Newcastle's midfield, and listen, Bruno Guimaraes is a great player. Sandro Tonali is a really good player as well. I think, what will it be? Longstaff coming in, maybe to sort of replace Joe Linton, if that's the way that Eddie Howe goes. If I just have a quick glance back at maybe what he did in the first leg, it was Willock. It was Willock that came in and played alongside Tonali and Joe Linton, but obviously Bruno Guimaraes was missing. So if Bruno Guimaraes comes in, it could be Willock, it could be Longstaff that comes into the side, assuming he's fit as well. I think for me, when I look at Newcastle's midfield, in terms of the physical stuff, the one that I worry about the most is Joe Linton. So if he's missing, that's massive. And if Partey and Rice can get a hold of that midfield in the way that they did at the weekend against Manchester City, then we got a great chance. The midfield is going to be key in this game. So key. So key. Barry Greenberg's a Liverpool fan. He says, I see Newcastle cooking Arsenal big time with the firepower of Isak. He's a player that obviously we'll be worried about, and hopefully he's a player that we can get in at the Arsenal someday. I know Newcastle fans hate it when we say that, by the way. So he says, Havertz missed a header to make it 2-1. It was a massive moment. Need to turn it around tonight. It was a massive moment. And the fact that it was such a big moment kind of demonstrates how finely balanced it still is, because that one goal would have changed the momentum completely. Okay, Newcastle, I beg your pardon, would have still had a lead. Newcastle would have still taken a lead back to St. James's Park. But having conceded the last goal in the game, having given Arsenal that little bit of encouragement and having the deficit halved, essentially, it does change the dynamic. And, you know, that was a really, really significant miss. It absolutely was. But look, guys, players miss chances. That's part of football. Like, people have sat there and sort of pointed at Kai Havertz as the reason maybe for us, you know, failing to get the result that we wanted in that game. We had 23 shots at goal, only 3 of which were on target. I'm pretty sure Kai Havertz didn't have all 23 of those efforts on that night. So, you know, you got to look at the team as a collective. I keep saying it. I've said it so many times when we've been talking about the need for a striker, talking about the need for this and for that. One of the constant things I've sort of pushed back with is, yeah, but it's the collective. The collective is not producing anywhere near enough goals. Not Trossard, not Martinelli, not Odegaard, not Rice, just to name a few. Not Sterling when he plays. You know, there is an issue there, generally speaking. So we need to fix that. We need to improve that. But confidence should be on a high, having achieved the result that we did against Manchester City at the weekend. And look, football is a funny old game. You just never know. My prediction for tonight, and my prediction is going to be with my head rather than my heart, is going to be Arsenal to win 1-0 up at St. James's Park, but for it not to be enough. I think we're going to struggle to score more than 1 goal up at St. James's, particularly if Newcastle set up the way that I think they will, adopt the low block that I think they will, with a view to hitting us on the counter-attack with the likes of Gordon and Isak running channels, etc., which they're really, really good at. But anyway, let's see. AFC Bermsey says, I wasn't expecting much in this fixture, but given what happened at the weekend and no Joe Linton, I feel very different. We only need 2 goals ultimately, and this is another game the players will want to win. Let's see. Mario's on his way up to St. James's Park. He's on the train to King's Cross at the moment. Head in there. Wish you a safe journey, mate. All the best. Enjoy. Gonna love you and leave you all. Just a quick reminder for a couple of things. First of all, if you're watching us on YouTube, leave us a like. It really, really does help. And if we could get to 100 likes by the time this stream ends, that would be massive. So please support us if you can. I say if you can. Likes don't cost a bloody thing. Just hit the like button. It's completely bloody free, but it's a massive help. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. All of that stuff really, really, really helps. And just a quick plug for the last episode that we put out, which came out last night, where we went through the Athletics piece on what happened during the window. I factored in a few bits and pieces that I became aware of, sort of being at the training ground yesterday. And we tried to paint at least a vague picture of what happened at Arsenal during the January transfer window. There were some decisions that I agree with. There were some decisions that I disagree with. And I thought that I did my best to deliver a balanced view on it. I know a lot of people disagree, and that's fine. Disagreement is not an issue, but yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think, and if you believe that that's kind of how it went down during the January transfer window. That's the last episode on the podcast feed, and it is the last video on the channel. Check it all out. Like, subscribe, all the rest of it, and I'll be speaking to you next after the hopeful victory up at St. James's Park. I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great Wednesday. Goodbye.